So yes, last Monday we did the worst units for every faction, so naturally this Monday we're doing the best units for every faction. Now, obviously, I'm not really the multiplayer person, so these are going to be the best units for the campaign, and also they're going to be rated on like ease of use, cost effectiveness and stuff, because if you're going by the best units, it's clearly going to be the most expensive units. But yes, best units for every faction, it's kind of a better title really, isn't it? So yeah, that's why we're going with that. Now, before we get into this, just wanted to let you know this is no one done with the help of the Discord. I ask a question, they give me their opinions, I use them and give them no credit. It's a great deal. We do it every single week. It's so much fun, so you best join in. Also, the tournament, the deadline for applying to join, if you don't know about it, Noob the New God tournament, you enter, you play a multiplayer battle, all the details about that are in the Discord, and then you have a chance to win a DLC of your choice. If you want to enter this, join the Discord, send me a DM with your multiplayer experience and your DLC of choice before the 1st of July. If you send me a message on the 1st, I will already be considering which entrance I'm going to pick, so you won't be counted. So yes, if you want to enter that tournament, be sure to send it before then. Yes, without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, starting off as usual with the High Elves, I chose to go with the Northern Sea Guard, and yes, I know they're not the best unit, the Sisters of Avalon are a way better unit when you get to that point in the game, but Northern Sea Guard are unlocked on a tier 2 building and are ridiculously good for how much they cost. They have ranged, and yes, they don't have the same range or the same damage as some other High Elf units, even the regular archers have better range and comparable damage. But not only do they have range, they can also fight in melee and do a pretty good job holding the line and, just kind of sitting there for a very long time while your other Northern Sea Guard shoot. Back when I played the High Elves in the High Elf Guide all those eons ago, my mid-game army was completely comprised of a load of Northern Sea Guard because they are that versatile. You just throw like 3 lines of them, and then there's not really anything that the enemy can do, because they hit one, then get shot by the other 2, they hit the next one, they're still getting shot by the one on the back. They just can't really do anything against all that firepower. Just really a jack-of-all-trades unit, not really a master at anything, they're not the best in melee, they're not the best from range, but when it comes down to it, they are pretty good at everything. And also, it really helps that you unlock them so early. Yes, Sisters of Avalon are obviously better, but you unlock them quite a bit later on in the campaign. As I said, these guys, tier 2 building, they're incredible. You can have them on like turn 10, and they will put in so much work for a very long time in your campaign. Now, for the Dark Elves, we actually decided to go for Shades with Greatswords. And yes, I know they're the most expensive of all the ranged units, but to be honest, when you're in campaign, they are unlocked relatively early, and they're not actually that expensive to unlock, so they are pretty good anyway. So a tier 2 building unlocks you regular shades, and then a 5,000 gold upgrade to a tier 3 building unlocks you, the shades with greatswords and the shades with dual weapons, but greatswords are the better ones. So it's not actually too much of a hassle, especially when you're playing the Dark Elves, because, you can sack a single settlement, get 5,000 gold pretty easily, get a bunch of slaves which will get you more money over and over again every single turn, so it's not really that much of a challenge to save up to buy these guys and buy the building that gets these guys. So again, these guys are another one of those jack-of-all-trades unit now. They have great ranged. In fact, they probably have better ranged damage than the Northern Sea Guard, even though they don't have as much range, because these guys are doing armor-piercing damage, whereas Sea Guard are not. But Sea Guard have more range, so it kind of evens out. So these guys are very good damage from range, and then also when they get into melee, as long as they're going against any sort of infantry, 9 times out of 10 they're probably going to come up the winner. These guys also have Stalk and Vanguard deployment, and honestly, that's just the cherry on top. It allows them to spawn wherever they want and sneak up on the enemy units and just damage them however they see fit. Charge in and hit them with melee, or just shoot them from range, it really doesn't matter. They are top tier. Now, for the Lizardmen, a lot of people were saying we should go for a dinosaur, the Stegodons, the Blessed Carnosaurs, many of these units, and yes, they are very good, but they're also quite expensive, need quite a couple of buildings to unlock them, and the upkeep is a little bit steep, the Lizardmen be. So when it came down to it, we actually decided to go for Shielded Saurus Spears, and yes, I know they are pretty much unlocked on like turn 2 if you upgrade the building that you get in your capital city, but still, they are pretty amazing. If you're playing Gorok, of course, Saurus units are incredible, but for every single faction in the game, Saurus units are still pretty much one of the best early game infantry units that you can possibly get. Now, I know spears don't do as much damage as the regular maces or sword infantry, whatever it is that they swing at the enemies, but they have better defense, especially once you give them shields. That means they can just hold the line for a stupid amount of time, let your ranged units and large units and dinos and lords do all the killing power, while these guys just stand here forever and ever and literally will just never die. They stick around for an ungodly amount of time. It's heinous. Also, going for the shielded variant means that they have more protection from ranged attacks, and going for the spears variant means they get defense from charge. So they get charged by enemy horses, doesn't matter, they're not going to feel anything. They get shot by a bunch of arrows, doesn't matter, they're not really going to feel much. They get stuck in melee with any other early game infantry, doesn't matter, they're probably going to win and they're not going to take that much damage. Saurus spears with shields, ungodly sustain, they can just stay there forever and ever. Honestly, one of the best units for the Lizardmen. You could keep them with you right up until the end game if you couldn't be bothered getting Temple Guard for that extra bit of cost. But yeah, they're pretty incredible when you unlock them in the game, if a little expensive. But it's the Lizardmen, everything's expensive. Now, for the Rat Boys, it was kind of an obvious one. Like, obviously it was going to be a weapons team because they are the best units in the Skaven roster. It's not really even a question. Of course, we all love a Doom Wheel and the Doom Flayers and the Artillery, but the weapons teams that got added with Ikit Claw, they're just far too good. Ultimately, the one it came down to was the Rattling Guns because they are so incredible. Honourable mention for Jezzails and Wind Mortars because they have such incredible range, can do so much damage, they are amazing, but Rattling Guns, oh boy, if they're fighting anything within their range, they're going to win. Against Jezzails, against Wind Mortars, they're going to win because they just do an ungodly amount of damage. It's truly disgusting. Honestly, that's the only downside of the Rattling Guns. They don't have the same range as these ridiculous artillery pieces or the Jezzails or the Wind Mortars, but anything that is within their range is going to get turned into a fine mist in a matter of moments. Of course, if you're playing Ikit Claw, you can go to the workshop, skyrocket these guys to the sun, with infinite ammo, bonus damage and all sorts of things, but the base unit themselves are pretty much top tier without the need for this. All those things are just little bonuses that make them even more overpowered. Can't say how many battles in my campaign I won just by setting up a line of Rattling Guns and shooting at everything that's coming my way, and they have the suppressed battle effect, which means anything they shoot at is going to get slowed down, so they're going to get shot at more. It's honestly just disgusting. You just see the enemy coming at you, and then they get hit, and then they just pull a U-turn and just walk away. It's ridiculous. They are so strong. If they don't get shot to pieces by anything that can outrange them, then the enemy doesn't stand a chance. It's just a wall of fire and pain and death. They can't do anything about it. Rattlings are god. And of course, if something is out of their range, just move them up, and then it won't be out of their range, and then they can tear it to pieces. For example, one of my battles in my campaign series, I was fighting against a steam tank. It was out of range. It was the last unit left, the only thing I needed to take out. Move the Rattlings up, and oh boy, it got took out pretty quick, it did. Oh yeah. Now, coming to the DLC for our Warhammer 2 units, we have the Tomb Kings. And while all Tomb King units are free, so it's impossible not to get your money's worth for them because, they're free, a lot of them are unlocked via buildings that are actually quite expensive. The Bone Giant, for example, great unit. It's unlocked by a building that I will almost never build because it's pretty much useless in every other way. What it came down to for me is a unit that gets a lot of use and is also not too difficult to unlock. Sepulchral Stalkers kind of fit this quite nicely because they are unlocked fairly early on in the building trees, but also far enough along so that they're actual good units, not just like skeleton spears. They have amazing range damage with Vanguard deployment and Stalk, which means they can start wherever they want, sneak up on the enemy, tear them to pieces, and then just, slither away as they do. Of course, their speed isn't too phenomenal, but when you have Stalk, you can kind of disappear in the blink of an eye anyway, so it's not too big a deal. This ranged fire is also magical ammo, so if they're going against anything with resistances, it's really not going to make that much of a difference, as they're just going to cut straight through it anyway. Now, even though they have poor melee stats, the melee attack and defense isn't too great, their weapon strength is phenomenal, so those very few times that they hit, they're going to hit pretty damn hard. So they can take on some fairly weak infantry or, flank around, get the enemy artillery fairly easily without losing too much health. And if it really comes down to it, you can just send them into your front lines when it's completely out of ammo and just help out your infantry just that little bit more. Because, skeleton swordsmen, they need all the help they can get, really. The ability to cause fear is also another great bonus for a unit like this because, if they do get into any melee, even if they have the advantage on damage, they're still going to be sapping the enemy leadership just by being there because of the fear. And one final thing that makes them great is the charge defense against large. If any horsemen or anything decides to try and run them down, then they're going to have a pretty easy time just shrugging off that damage, moving on, taking out the next unit. They're pretty top tier. Finally, for Warhammer 2, we have the Vampire Coast. And yes, I know the Necrofex is the best unit, it's statistically the best unit, it factually is the best unit, but it is also unlocked ridiculously late, and yes, I know you can rush it and get it in like 20 turns and all this, but for the average player, you unlock it fairly late, and it's also quite expensive. And yes, I'm talking, even if you play Noctilus, it's fairly expensive, and I know you can get a load of money as the Vampire Coast, but it's still expensive, it costs a lot of gold. The true unit that is the best, cost-wise, and by the time you unlock it wise, it's the Handgun Gunnery Mob. Now hear me out, it does a little bit of AP damage, it has a nice amount of ammo that you can replenish with a Gunnery White, has a nice little bit of range so you can rain fire on all the enemies, it's expendable, it's a good meat shield, it can do everything. You can have your early game armies comprise solely of these guys, just lines and lines and lines of them, and they will pretty much do very well. These units are a true staple of the early-ish game for the Vampire Coast, and if you really wanted to, you could keep them for a very long time. In fact, I believe I kept them until I unlocked Deck Gunners, which are, the superior ranged unit with a little bit worse melee stats. But even then, you could really take Handgunners right into the end game with you, and you could do just fine, because they do such good, constant damage that you don't really need anything else. You do kind of have to ignore that, every stat that isn't their range damage is pretty crap because they are a gunnery mob, so if they get caught in turning melee, they're going to die because their stats are awful. If they lose in their leadership, they're going to die because their stats are awful. If they get charged, they're going to lose because their stats are awful. But if you can, just keep them there, constantly shooting, constantly firing, keep their ammo topped up with a gunnery white, give them some boosts in damage with the gunnery white just being nearby, and then they're going to do some excellent damage. A little bit of armor piercing. It's all you need. It's all you need. Just loads of shots. So yes, while they aren't the best unit in the world stats-wise, when you unlock them and how much they cost, it just makes them, honestly, so much value for your money, and so much value for when you are getting them, you gotta take them.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
You there. Are you a fan of books but lack the time or attention span to sit down to read one? Then worry not. Audible is here to save the day. They have the world's largest selection of audiobooks, audio dramas, and audio shows. Basically, anything you could ever want in an audio form, Audible has you covered. Though for lifetime listening, meaning even if you cancel your plan, you can still listen to any of the books you picked up until the end of time. They have an exchange service, meaning if you get a book and realize you don't like it or will never listen to it again, you can give it back to Audible in exchange for a credit, which you can spend on any other book in their collection. It's a truly wonderful experience with 24/7 concierge-level service, with a 98% satisfaction rate. They even have a handy application for your cellular device, meaning you can listen no matter where you are. You can listen in the car. You can listen in a park. You can even listen in bed to peacefully end the day before the existential dread comes and reminds you of that one argument you lost in year 3 with Jamie, where you should have insulted his mother after you insulted your father, but instead you did nothing because you're fake. So sign up today for a free trial on us. That's right, you can get an entire month for free, which includes one book to keep for life, and many other member-exclusive perks. Or if you're feeling particularly intellectual, you can sign up for 3 months at half the normal price. Yes, that's 3 months at half the normal price, coming in at just $3.99 a month. Now that's what I call epic. Sign up for Audible today using the links in the description and support the most epic channel this side of the internet. And now we return you to your regularly scheduled programming.
Now, kicking us off for Warhammer 1, we of course have the Empire, and it's a Hellstorm rocket battery. Yeah, it's so incredible. And yes, I know the steam tank is really good, and it can go into melee, it can do lots of damage, it can do all of this. It also costs a hell of a lot of money, and yes, the Hellstorm rocket battery also costs quite a lot of money, but not as much as the steam tank, and oh lord, it's so good. Stupid range, stupid damage, and stupid explosion size that makes it do even more damage. And yes, I know it's not the most accurate thing in the world, and it can sometimes miss, and the explosions can hit your own troops, but honestly, if you are firing this massive rocket salvo of a cannon at a massive clump of enemy units, even if you don't hit the unit you're aiming for, chances are you're going to hit something, and you're going to get some kills, and you're going to do a lot of damage. And yes, if it is hitting your front lines, it's doing a bit of damage to your own units, that's just acceptable casualties, my man. That's just what we gotta do to get that W. And yes, of course, since it's a straight artillery unit, it is vulnerable to being charged by cav and being flanked by death runners and all these delightful things that can happen to your artillery. But when it comes down to it, if you just, keep this guy a couple of halberds or some spears nearby, and it can keep firing for the entire battle, it's going to get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kills, depending on who you're going up against. Send this against the vampire counts, they don't stand a chance, they haven't got any ranged, shoot literally everything they could possibly bring. A whole tide of zombies and skeletons and tomb guard and monsters. It will do so much damage to every single thing it hits. It is ungodly. The range is ridiculous, the damage is ridiculous, the explosions are ridiculous. This unit is ridiculous, I love it, it's the best. Lack of accuracy doesn't matter if your explosions cover the entire quarter of the map. Now, my favourite guys, the vampire counts, the skelly boys, the zombo boys, it's the skeleton spearmen, and yes, I know what you're thinking, skeleton spearmen, they're garbage, and yes, you are correct, but there's one thing that makes them the best. It takes 18 turns to complete a research that makes upkeep for them 0, which means you can essentially just buy as many of them as you possibly can per turn, and the only upkeep you're going to have to pay is for the lord that's managing the army. This is ridiculous, and you also can, do different researches that improve the unit, improve the recruit costs so they're even cheaper, improve their stats. It's just foul. They're incredible, and they're free. Now, you may be thinking Skeleton Warriors, they're also made free, and they do better damage, but yes, they do, but Skeleton Spearmen also have better defense, so will stick around a little bit longer, and have a bonus versus large, which the vampire counts are sorely lacking in most departments, so it adds a little more roundness to your army when you can hold the line a lot longer. And the entire point of playing with the Vampire Coast with this sort of unit spam is that you tie the enemy out and then you just overtake them with your fear and, constant chipping away of damage. You don't need to do a lot, you just need to stick around to do lots of little bits. On top of this anti-large damage, they also have a charge defense versus large, so if the enemy brings any cav, any monsters, anything like that, and they get charged, the charge bonus isn't going to do anything to them, they're just going to shrug off all damage and be completely a-okay and just keep sitting there and keep fighting top tier, especially when they're free. So yes, even though they are statistically terrible, they are a great unit for value for money because they're free and they're pretty much the best of the free units that you can get. Good lord, this is ridiculous. Play the vampire counts, I love them, but play them for this because it's hilarious. Now, for the Dowie, we all love the Dwarves, we all love their constructed masterful artillery pieces, the flame cannon. Oh, I love watching that thing go into action. You know, the Thunderers, the Iron Drakes, the Trollhammer torpedoes, and all these things. Even the Iron Breakers with their satchel charges. Those bad boys are incredible. But there is one unit that rules them all as the best unit for value for money, not just for its stats, but also for one very important factor. Yes, I'm talking about the Longbeards here, and yes, I know they are more expensive than Dwarf Warriors, and yes, Dwarf Warriors are a little bit cheaper and have really good stats, especially when you are using them in the game. You know, the first infantry unit you get has excellent stats, but Longbeards are a little bit more expensive, but they're completely worth it, and here's why. Not only do they have better stats, that's not what I'm talking about. The stats could be exactly the same, and I'd still probably go for Longbeards because of this one thing. They have Encourage, and what this means is, when they're on the front lines, every unit around them is going to get a bonus of leadership whenever the Longbeards are nearby. This means you have your entire front line. You can have a load of Dwarf Warriors if you want. You just have like Dwarf Warrior, Longbeard, Warrior, Longbeard, Warrior, Longbeard, all the way along your front lines, and the Longbeard is going to encourage the 2 units to the side of it to make them stick around longer. And when you're playing the Dwarves, and the base leadership for most units is like 80, you know, giving units that have 80 leadership, like 18 more or whatever the bonus is, yeah, giving units that much leadership, it pretty much makes them unbreakable. They're going to stick around forever and ever. The enemy will never get rid of you. And when you're playing the Dwarves, unbreakable units that aren't Slayers is incredible because most of your units are doing good damage and are also incredibly tough. So they're not going to take much damage, they're going to put out a lot, and they're going to stick around forever. It's foul. On top of this, of course, you know, they do actually have better stats than Dwarf Warriors, so they are marginally better. They also have charge defense versus large, so if, you know, any enemy cav or monster or anything charges them, they can pretty much shrug it off without too much of a hassle. And they're just so good. The Encourage, they're basically unbreakable. If anything breaks through a front line that has Longbeards in it and all your units are routing, chances are you've already lost the battle, or the enemy has focused all their resources onto your Longbeards, and by that point they're too exhausted and the rest of your army can take them out anyway. It's kind of a win-win because you could lose, but it's a very close to win-win scenario. Try them, they're really good. Now for the Greenskins, we decided to go for the Night Goblin Fanatics. And yes, I know they are actually one of the last infantry units you unlock when playing as the Greenskins. They are, I believe, unlocked from a tier 4 building, and they are one of the most expensive Goblin units, even though Goblin units are very expensive anyway. But they're just so good, they're so worth it. Poison damage is always a great bonus. We all know how much I love poison damage. It makes everything that this unit attacks even worse, which means that everything that's attacking the unit that this unit's attacking is going to have a much easier time because it's going to have less damage, less defense. Oh, it's so useful. If you can get poison damage on anything, take it. It's so good. Vanguard and Stalk also allow them to get even closer to enemy units, so you can start them right at the front. The enemy can't do anything. They charge forward. Boom, met by a big old line of Night Goblin Fanatics, and then they're pinned down. They can't really do anything to escape it. And when they get into this position, the true power of the Fanatics comes into play because they can use the Spinning Loons ability, which if you haven't seen it, oh boy, basically a couple of these guys, they get like a big ball and chain and then swing it around and get loads of momentum and just do this and just spin into the enemy lines. It's incredible. They can tear units to pieces. Units that are way more elite than them, send it into a unit of greatswords is going to do a boatload of damage, and then the rest of your units can just pile in, and then they're fighting units that's at like half health because it's been fighting against some goblins that cost like 500 gold and are already poisoning them. So good. If you can get these guys, use their ability, it's so much value for money, it's crazy. Now we all know how much I like Bretonnia, not very much, but there is one unit in the roster that, you know, even I have to say, damn, that's good value for money, dog. You know, I quite like that unit. And it is, of course, the Pox Arrow Peasant Bowmen. Now, I know what you're thinking. Peasant Bowmen are terrible, awful leadership. If they get touched by literally anything, they will run away at the first sign of conflict. If they get charged by literally anything, they'll run away from the first sign of conflict. If they are fighting against, you know, if they are in a ranged duel against literally anything, they will run away at the first sign of conflict. Their damage isn't that phenomenal, but the thing is, they're so dirt cheap that you can get like 6 of these guys, aim them on literally anything, and it will melt because of just sheer numbers. Now, I went for the Pox Arrows over the regular arrows and the fire arrows because Pox Arrows, as I just said, poison damage, ridiculously valuable. It's literally the only difference between these guys and the regular guys, and the cost difference is basically nothing, and the building difference is also basically nothing. It's a farm that's going to make you more money, so I don't know why you ever wouldn't get it. But yes, the only difference between regular archers and these guys is the poison damage. The damage is the exact same armor piercing damage that's admittedly not very good, but when you've got 6 units firing on 1 unit, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, these guys can take out a War Mammoth fairly easily as long as they have something, you know, bogging down the unit before it gets to them. They can all focus fire on it, it will melt. And with the poison damage, it will melt even faster because it can't defend and it can't attack very well. So good. And yes, I know that there are some cavalry units in Bretonnia that are technically better, and when you really know how to use cav and chariots and all these fun things, and you're CC god, CC, that's not the correct thing, when you're a micro god, you know, you can probably do better. But if you're average player who's not very good at micro, you know, a unit that I can just select all of them, right click on a unit and it melts, that's pretty good for me. Now we come to Norsca, and it's this point and onwards that I have to say I have no idea because I haven't really played these factions, so I'm kind of been going off what the Discord has said and from what I can tell from the unit stats. So if I'm wrong here, I apologise, but that's just how democracy works, yo. Now for Norsca, we elected, well, the Discord really elected because I didn't really know, to go for the War Mammoth. And yes, I know it's like the second most expensive unit for the Norscan guys, but good lord, I can kind of see why, because those stats are incredible. It is a disgusting amount of damage with a bonus for this infantry. So send this into a clump, watch it disappear. It will just run in, wiggle its tusks around, and just melt anything that it comes into. It is so strong. Just look at that thing. Would you want to fight it? I wouldn't. Also has 68 charge bonus, which for a unit that's this large, that, you know, can get up a moderate amount of speed, 68 charge bonus is pretty substantial. It can run in there and just completely paste whatever it's going against, especially with, you know, that incredible weapon strength. Add that on top of this charge bonus, and it charges into a unit of infantry. If that unit of infantry isn't ridiculously elite and has charge defense versus everything, chances are it's going to break in 1 or 2 attacks. It's that strong. Finally, it has all this range damage that is just sat on its back, shooting at everything, and yes, this is also poison damage, meaning everything that's around this unit is going to be weaker, is going to be taking constant damage, and good lord, that's so strong. It's so strong when the Lizards use it, it's so strong when the Norskins use it, and it has 200 ammo, which means it's basically going to fight until the end of the battle. So yeah, it's top tier. Honestly, use this thing, watch it just shred literally everything. It's beautiful. Now, for the Wood Elves, it's going to be the Way Watchers, and this one was a massive debate. I thought it could have been the Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts because, you know, they've got good AP damage, magical damage, they do really well. I played with them that one time, they seemed to clean up literally anything that I turned them against, so I thought it could be those guys, but democracy rules and it ended up being the Way Watchers. And yes, I know they are the most elite of the Wood Elf ranged infantry, so of course they're going to be the best. And you know the Wood Elves, they're kind of known for their ranged infantry, so it kind of makes sense that it's them. Now, Way Watchers cost more gold, and they actually cost amber if you're not playing Orion, I believe. Again, I haven't played the Wood Elves, this is just what the Discord would tell me, so don't get mad, this is just what they said, okay? But yes, they cost more gold, and they also kind of cost amber depending on who you're playing, so they are quite a commitment if you want to get these guys. So in some situations, the Glade Guard can be better, but overall, for the units, you know, the Way Watchers are technically the best unit. Now, they have better range than High Elf Archers, which, that's pretty disgusting because, you know, the High Elves have some of the best range in the game. So the humble Wood Elves, who literally no one plays, having better range and also kind of better damage at sometimes, yeah, that's crazy. They're really good. This means they can sit the back, you know, sit in the woods, sit anywhere, and take out most units where they can even see where the arrows are coming from. They also have Hawkish Precision, which means the further away they are from units, or the further away units are from them, they can do even more damage. So if you can just keep these guys at least 70 meters away, because that's when the ability activates, away from any enemy units, they're going to do so much damage, it's going to be disgusting, they're going to get so much damage, so much kills. Oh, they're good. Now finally, they also have Vanguard Deployment and Stalk. They also have the Woodsman ability, which I believe means they can, you know, just walk through trees without being slowed down. This means that they can basically never be caught if they're on a map that has any decent amount of woods. The enemy can't send cav because cav gets slowed down substantially by woods. Most infantry won't be able to follow them into woods because the Wood Elves will just hide and they won't be able to find them, and then they'll get shot to pieces as soon as they leave. If you can manage these guys well, they are kind of micro-intensive if you're using them that way. They can just clean up and do so much damage and never, ever, 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 ever get caught. They're so good, you gotta give them a try. You know, if you do like playing the Wood Elves, which, does anybody? Coming to the Beastmen now. I know, guys, we are almost done. We're at the Beastmen, it's fine, just calm down. Went for Minotaurs with shields. I'll try and get through these last couple more quickly. Now, the Minotaurs with shields are pretty much the same as regular Minotaurs, but they have shields, better armor, better melee defense, with a little bit of charge bonus taken away, and the loss of like 14 bonus versus infantry damage. So it's honestly a really good trade because they cost like literally the exact same. I know I'm checking from the multiplayer menu, but they cost the exact same. Why would you not go for them? They have massive weapon strength, they shed load of arm piercing damage. I mean, send these guys against, you know, great swords, send them against a tank, send them against a steel wall, and they'll still do a substantial amount of damage. These guys are incredible, at least for the Beastmen. Now, they have good speed, not amazing speed, you know, they're not dire wolves or anything, but they have good speed, which means that they can close the gap fairly easily, as long as they're not going against rattler guns, because that hurts. But this allows them to close gaps, you know, make flanks, do hit and run, do the entire Beastman strategy very effectively, because they can get in, hit really hard, and then run out before the enemy has time to react. They can also keep their own leadership topped up by the Blood Greed ability, which means that whenever they are above, like, not broken leadership, they're going to get a bonus to their leadership. I'm not exactly sure how that works, because it just seems like you should just increase their leadership at that point. I don't know. But basically it means if you play them right, they can stick around for a very long time and pick up a massive number of kills. Now finally, for the Warriors of Chaos, we have the Chaos Warriors. It's an interesting sentence to say, I know, but Chaos Warriors, they are really good. You may remember from last week's video that I said Marauders are completely pointless because you can get Chaos Warriors on like turn 3 and they are so much better. And that's true. You know, Chaos Warriors are so much better, and this is how much better they are. They are the best unit for value for money in the entire roster. They have ungodly stats at this stage in the game. Stats that will make Khorne proud because they are that good. 100 armor and a silver shield. Who thought that was a good idea? That means they have 100 armor, so they're reducing all damage that hits them that isn't armor piercing by a massive amount. And at the stage you unlock them in the game, none of that damage is really going to be that armor piercing. So that means they're blocking essentially the majority of damage that hits them. They also have shields, so if the enemy has any ranged units, and these are silver shields as well. You know, the shield system in Total War is a little bit hard to understand, but all you need to know is silver shield better than bronze shield. It blocks a lot more shots than the bronze shield, which means it takes a lot less damage. That's incredible. They can just stay there forever. They are ridiculously tough. Now, while I may not have armor piercing damage, so their, overall damage output is not the best in the entire world, they still do pretty decent damage, even if it's not all armor piercing, and they can just stick around for such a long time that, just slowly chipping away with non-armor piercing damage. Pretty much anything they go against that is unlocked at this similar stage in the game, turn 4, they're going to win. Let's be honest, it's a no contest. And finally, they have incredible leadership. So, just to round off, super tough, incredible leadership will take ages to get killed, so that means they can do a bunch of damage while they're there because their damage is also really good, and they are ridiculously early unlocking the game. You gotta try them if you know. Again, who plays the Warriors of Chaos? Not really anyone, apart from I've got to start doing that soon. Oh, but I promise the Chaos Guide, I know I need to do it, but I've got some stuff in real life that I got to sort out first, and I'll let you know when it's coming. Just keep an eye out, and I'll let you know. Okay? Epic. But yes, Chaos Warriors are the best units for the Warriors of Chaos. Weird sentence. But yes, I believe that is everything that we need to cover. One more time, just got to plug this. If you want to join the tournament, as I mentioned at the start, then the closing date is quickly approaching. You have today and tomorrow, then that's it. British time, when it gets into the first, so midnight tomorrow, I believe, even though I'm not filming this on the day, so it's very confusing. Midnight tomorrow, British time. If you message me after that, your entrance will not be counted, and you may still be charged. You definitely will be charged. I'm just kidding, there's no charges. It's Discord, it's free. If you don't have Discord, what are you really doing? Right? Come on, what are you really doing? But yes, send me a DM, multiplayer experience, DLC of choice before then, and I'll be picking the entrance, I'll be getting in touch with them, and I promise, stop asking me when I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it at some point next month. As I said, there's just stuff going on in life right now that I've kind of got to sort out, but I'll let you know. It'll be sometime next month, at least, okay? Epic. Also, since this is the last major video of the month, I'd just like to take this time to thank my generous patrons. Yes, I have a Patreon. I launched it when we reached 10,000 subs, and I didn't expect anyone to join it, probably like $1 from like a couple of people, but no, there's actually a couple of people I'd like to thank in particular. Henry Tucker, Mike Amarillo, and Hot Soup. Thank you very much for your $5 donations per month. That's very generous of you. There's also, I think there's one person that got the tech shout out, so I'll just put him on screen now. But yes, if you want to, have a shout out in these videos, if you want to support me in a very direct way, Patreon's a great way. So if you want to support me in a very direct way and get a shout out in one of these videos, Patreon is a very good way, a very direct way to do it. So be sure to, head on over to the link in the description and just think, oh, this sounds very fun. The content over there that is exclusive is just going to be updates of what's coming on with the channel, what's going on with me, should be lots of fun. But yes, if you want to do that, link in the description. I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you for all your support. Love you. Okay, but yes, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you agree that these units are the best, then be sure to like this video and leave a comment saying, oh, wow, yeah, that is the best unit. If you didn't agree and you didn't like this video, then be sure to leave a dislike and comment saying, oh, well, actually, this unit is a little bit worse. So yeah, I prefer if you said this, and also I really hate you and think you're bad and think now that you've shaved you look like a baby, because I do. I know it wasn't really much, but I look like a child now. Like I literally feel like I look like I'm 15, and that's not a good look. But yes, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos on Total War Warhammer 2, Warhammer 3, if it ever comes out, come on CA, I need the views from Warhammer 3 CA. Then yes, be sure to subscribe if you want to see more content about that. Warhammer 2, Warhammer 3. If I get any news, I'll be sure to let you know. But currently, I'm just sat here watching my 10 hours of nothing compilation for my general news for Warhammer 3. Just be sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like that. But yes, for now, I believe that covers everything. So I have been your boy, COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I shall see you in the next episode of MasterChef. Thank you.